Everybody, welcome. It is a Sunday afternoon and I don't know, I've been tired all day and weird all day, but I want to try doing something that I hope will be fun and interesting and enjoyable. This is something that I do for fun, relatively frequently. And it is Dungeons and Dragons related. I like going and building characters. I like rolling random stats for them and then figuring out a way to turn those random stats into a character that's hopefully fun and powerful. So I want to do that. I want to do that in front of the camera and I want to see how it goes. This is like the equivalent to my earliest reaction videos, my earliest things where I was recording something that I didn't know if it was going to work or be content. And I don't know if it's even valuable or fun, but I really like doing it and I'd like to share the process of doing it with you guys. And then there's another thing to it, which is that I'm kind of a forever DM. Like in my friend group, I'm the DM. And sometimes I can get them to run one shots and stuff, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to be the one DMing for a while. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of people, when I ask them if they play D&D, they're like, oh shit, I'd love to play D&D. I've never played before. Do you know anybody who DMs? It's like, yeah, I know somebody who DMs. It's me. I'll be the DM. Fine, sure, I'll do that. Um, but I never get to play really. I get to play one shots occasionally, and so one of my loves in the game is optimizing and creating characters, and I don't get to do it very much. At least I don't get to use those characters very much. I do it fairly frequently. To be clear, I think I should be able to pull this up and just show you that I've got dozens and dozens of characters. All of them will say like Tee&D's character, and a lot of them I have to just go through and I've got to delete, but it's annoying to delete them. You got to click it and go type in delete or copy and paste it. And I don't want to delete any of the important ones, but anyway, I've got a ton of characters in here. Some of them are characters that are important and are something else. Like Nat, Squidly, and Jenks here are three urchin children who my party has adopted. Ming is a character that one of our friends came in and played one session with us, and I've kept around. But I've also copied that one and seen how to like make it different and done different things with it. Came up with all of these other ideas and all sorts of things. Amerigo is important, of course. B3 was somebody that I used for a one-shot. He was a Warforged Rune Knight fighter grappler who had like plus 11 to athletics checks and was grappling and stuff. It was super fun. Our first encounter, I rolled a natural one on stealth, and a giant insect monster came out and attacked us, and I got to grapple it, shove it to the ground, and give our Hexblade a bunch of attacks with advantage on it, while also pummeling the shit out of it myself. It was dope. It was very fun, and everybody had a good fucking time. But I like building these characters. Three Claw is a badger who's actually one of my player characters in a side campaign that I've been running that's like Redwall inspired. But I also build out things that I think are interested. Like, what if I did a beast barbarian with its multiple attacks that it can make, and I also was a circle of spores, like a spore beast attacky, clawy circle of spores, lots of damage sort of thing. It's a cool idea. It doesn't work as well as I'd hoped, but I do all sorts of ideas and things, and recently I've discovered another YouTube channel that I like very much, which is D&D Optimized, and D&D Optimized Colby over there is very good at making these very fun builds, but they're very well thought through, and they're planned from the outset, and I think he basically spends a lot of his week, when he's not doing his other jobs and other things, working on those builds and turning them into something really special and powerful. And I think that's very fun, but I like just like getting into it and just sort of messing stuff around. So we're gonna do like the experimental cooking show version of like a Colby D4 D&D Optimized. Great channel, by the way. Go sub to them. Go support them. Go join the channel. I support Colby in every way. They're great. But I want to get like in the weeds. And the other thing about the D&D optimized builds is that, and he should for what he's doing, he always uses or assumes point buy, which is a standard way of choosing ability scores, that gives you a lot of versatility, but makes basically not super powerful characters, not unpowerful characters, but not super powerful characters, and makes them good and cool. There is a problem with point buy that I have, and it's the while it's hyper versatile and you can make all sorts of decisions, there's something to me really appealing about the randomness of rolling for stats. And so I have encouraged my player characters to choose to roll for stats. I've given them the opportunity to take standard array or point buy if they'd like to. But in every situation where I give them the opportunity, I think people like to roll dice, and people believe and hope that they're going to get like 3 18s. And who doesn't hope that they're going to get like, 18, 17, 17 on a character and be able to like blow the world away and do insane shit? I hope so every time. But I like rolling for stats a lot. I think it's very fun. I'm okay with normal rolling for stats just fine. 46 drop lowest is easy peasy, and it creates interesting characters, sometimes very powerful, sometimes not. I mean, it's still random. I think it's valuable and valid. Usually when I'm doing die rolls with normal dice, I'll allow like one reroll of 1/1 per die, and I find, or per set of 4. And I find that makes significantly more powerful characters, as it should and as it would. But I think just going with the base rolls on D&D Beyond is cool, because then I can also just show them to you. What I am going to do, so for the concept of this video, is I'm going to go ahead and go into Character Builder. I'm going to choose a standard Character Builder. I'll enable like Critical Role content and basically all the things that I can choose. Probably not homebrew stuff. Probably not. And I will go ahead and roll for stats. I think I will give myself 3 roll groups. Does that seem fair? I'm going to give myself 3 roll groups, and then we're going to choose one of them. And maybe it'll be interesting to talk about which one we might want to choose for different reasons. And then from there, build out a character from level 1 to level 6. Partly because characters that go past that are, good and cool and awesome, but I spend a lot of my time optimizing those first 5, 6 levels because I think they're really interesting. I'm going to choose 6 because I find 5 really restricting, and I like subclasses. 6 gives you a lot of versatility. It lets you do like 4 in something and 2 in druid and get an ASI but also a druid subclass, or 5 in martial and 1 in cleric and get a cleric subclass but also a martial second attack. Also, there are a lot of subclasses that really want 6. Paladins, aura, obviously, but more importantly, things like Bladesinger. Bladesingers don't get extra attack until 6. So the bard subclasses don't get their extra attack or magical secrets until 6. So building a character towards 6 gives us a lot more. It expands out the room for changes and ideas and options and multi-classes and everything, and power and fun a whole lot. So that's what I'm going to build for, is toward level 6. But I want to create a character that isn't just like white room, white glove in a box, works at level 6. I want to build a character that potentially, hopefully, could survive the first 6 levels of a D&D campaign and be useful and valuable to a party and to themselves and to whatever their goals end up being, depending on how we build this character. And I want to build some level of backstory into this character as well. Hopefully build something compelling and interesting with like a story direction as well, and talk through how I would want to build a character like this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click the Create a Character button. We're going to go into it. If you've never seen this, I'm not going to tell you how all of D&D Beyond works. I'm sorry. But if you're familiar with D&D Beyond, nothing should be too complicated. So we start off immediately. We've got a T-Boost character. I'm going to make this Stream. We're just going to call him Stream, and him or her. It could be a female character. I don't know yet. It's totally possible. I'm not going to turn on Homebrew. I will turn on Critical Role content, Magic the Gathering content, Eberron content. I don't want non-core. I definitely want dice rolling. I'm going to turn on both optional class features and customize your origin. These are features added in Tasha's Cauldron, and they're good, and we want them. For right now, I'm going to keep prerequisites on for feats and multi-class requirements. If I decide to take it off for any reason, I'll let you know, but usually I think DMs like to have this on. Usually I like to keep it on unless there's a good reason that a player character can give me why their custom lineage character should be able to take an elf-only feat, for example, or something like that. If I do take it off, it's because we'll be in an edge case where I think I could persuade a DM and you could persuade a DM, and if we end up doing that, I'll try to give you another option that I think would still work. Showing level scaled spells is actually very cool, but I really hate it, so I'm going to turn it off. Not that if we're necessarily going to be a spellcaster. I don't even know what we're going to be yet. Our race, I'm not choosing yet. Often I would tell people to choose their race before they choose anything else. Choose your race, choose your class, whatever. Especially with Tasha's, like whatever you want to be is going to indicate to us more about who your character is and where they're going and what we want to build around them thematically. But because we have this huge point of randomness for us, which is the manual rolled stats, I'm going to roll stats first. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to record it all on camera so that you can kind of tell that I'm not cheating. I guess I could technically go back and edit it anyway, but I'm not going to cheat. And we're going to roll 3 dice roll groups. So you can see these roll groups across, and I'm going to roll all the dice across 1, 1, 1. There is a fun thing that I do sometimes to challenge myself, where I'll roll them across and I'll just assign them in place: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, bam, 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 and then try to create a character from that. It's real rough, and it ends up being unfun in a lot of ways. I'm also being super generous by giving myself 3 role groups to choose from. If that ends up being too powerful, maybe we'll change it in the future, but for now, I'm going to roll them all. Let's see what we get in our first role group. Here's our fun gambling time. Okay, a weirdly cocked 4-5, but that's all right. Okay, 14 is good. That's not good. That's also not good. This is a very weak character right now. That's quite good. Okay, so even as weak as a lot of these scores are, with a 16 and a 14, there's a good chance that we could build this into something that if it's single attribute dependent or single ability score dependent, I always say single attribute dependent or multiple attribute dependent, it's easier and it makes more sense. Then we could potentially build something really good. Like I could see this being our dex and this being our con, and that's all we really need for the character working acceptably. But that's really restrictive and a really interesting set of rolls. Let's see what we get on round 2. Terrible. Terrible. Average, but great. Terrible. Fantastic. Mediocre. Okay, so these are both really interesting. I think in any situation, probably the 16-16, even without like getting the 12 and switching 8s for 10s, is like super worth it. I mean, I can imagine this being a mountain dwarf, right? And getting +2/+2, and that's really cool. So of these two, I would probably choose this one, but I don't like it. Let's see what we get for round 3, and let's hope. All right, immediately we start off well. That's cool. Okay, neat. And that's an 18. And that's a 13. That's a 15. Okay, we got 2 15s and an 18. And an 11. All right, well, I mean, in terms of if we just tally these up, let me do that really quick. I'll calculate them because maths, it's fun. Give me a sec. I should just be able to do these in my head, but I don't want to fuck it up, so I'm just going to do it on a calculator really quick because tools are useful to humans. Ooh, yeah. So chart number 1 is a 67, which is considered low as fuck, and it should be. Wow. The second one is actually identical. It's also precisely a 67. That's unnervingly that's hard to do, considering that that's not that close to the center of the bell curve. That's kind of interesting. The last one, however, is not going to be a 67. This is a different stat. Yeah, 84. So starting stats, just base starting stats. This character has 17 stat points more than one of the other two. Well, makes it an easy choice. It's maybe a little bit powerful, but that's okay. You all see what I've done. I'm going to delete the other 2 dice roll groups because we don't need them. I'm not going to use them. We don't need them. Now, the question begins, where do these stats go? And why do they go there? And who is this character? And this is the hardest part of the entire build process. Because what our goals are indicate where our stats should be, and what kind of class we're going to play also indicates that. So basically, a lot of our ideas have to come together now and here to make things work. So we have to think about it. Primarily, we're worried about 3 of these. 3 of these stats don't matter that much to us: the 12, the 13, and the 11. Now, all of them are going to be a little bit better than average. They're going to be 10 or plus 0 or plus 1. Great. The 13 is maybe useful. At some point, we can place it somewhere if we need to multi-class into a class that has a requirement, but it's not really going to be an issue for us because we've got two 15s and an 18. So we're already, with just the two 15s, we're as good as we could get during point buy. The 18 is something special. So race-wise, it's kind of tempting to be a half-elf, so you get a +2 to something, namely charisma, and then a +1 and a +1. So we could have a charisma of 18, a dexterity of 16, and a constitution of 16 for a very sturdy starting character. And for somebody who can be single attribute dependent and then buff out with other stats, it's like, it's really tempting to do something like that. And then just be something that's sad as hell, single attribute dependent, which is a good thing. Sad makes me happy. And just like play a Hexblade, Polearm Master, Elven Accuracy, start off 20 charisma, attack. Simple. But too simple? Let's do something interesting. Let's do something fun. Part of the power of having strong stats is being able to be versatile and being able to be good at a couple of different things. And that's, I think, what I want to do here. I also want to dish out bucko damage, so we'll see. And there's a possibility that a paladin dip might be in here. I don't know. I feel like the paladin chassis is the move here in this situation. But I'm not 100% sold yet. I might have to be sorcerer first. I think I'm leaning toward a Sorkadin. For me, for this build. For a reason. But I'm not sure. We're going to have a really good con. Or a really good cost, so it's not necessary. Ooh, this is tough, man. This is tough. I'm straight up going to do the first thing that came to my mind, which is make this character utterly simple. This is going to be a powerful fucking martial character, and we're going to do it in the easiest, most straightforward way that I know how to do it for a level 6 martial character like this. We are going to be a half-elf. The 18 is going into charisma, and you'll know why in a second. The 15 is going into dexterity because it's going to be our armor class necessarily, and constitution for the other one because we're going to need some hit points. I'm really tempted to also maybe build this as a Bladesinger instead. Hold on. Let me think about that instead. I actually don't get that much out of bumping dex further if I plan on having medium armor, do I? Maybe custom lineage elf, but it's too busted, so maybe not. You know what? I've got a different idea. I want to do something weird. No, I don't know. This is the hard part. It's so difficult. What do you want to choose? Okay, I've decided what to do. There is a class that is notoriously stat hungry, but very powerful and very interesting. It is the wizard Bladesinger. And so we're going to build ourselves a wizard Bladesinger using these stats. The first and biggest question is whether I want an 18 in intelligence and just be a fucking better wizard. It's a pretty good idea. But if we're a Bladesinger, I want to build for melee. I want to build hard for melee. So I'm going to put that 18 into dexterity. And we're going to be the best, tankiest, beefiest, Bladesingiest wizard in the entire universe. And of course, a 15 will go into intelligence and a 15 will go into constitution because we need all of those. As for the 13, I could put it into strength, I could put it into wisdom, I could put it into charisma. I think I'm going to put it into charisma because I like the idea of being at least a little bit good at the intelligence and skill checks and stuff. And same with the 12 being in wisdom, just to have those plus ones in perception and insight and be a little bit better with people and with noticing things and a little bit smarter in general. I feel like a Bladesinger is like head on a swivel, eyes in combat, all those things. That won't be completely reflected in our stats because we're not that high in wisdom, but we are hella intelligent and we will be hella dexterous. So that sounds great to me. This has ability to increase custom lineage. I have not chosen that yet. I'm going to lock these in. I will reserve the right to change them in the future if I'd like to, if I don't think I want to go with the way that I've gone with things. Now, of course, we will be going Wizard, and we'll be going Wizard 1. I just was trying things with Bladesinger, and I was trying things with Custom Lineage, and I'm not sure that I'm sold on it. There are a couple of other options that seem really good to me. First off, I want to keep in mind that Bladesingers are technically meant to be limited to elves, so I want to go through some of the elf subraces and check them. One of the things that's not super useful is the one cantrip from the wizard spell list, because we're already going to be wizards. Usually this is really fucking good if we don't know any spells from the wizard spell list, but we will, so not as useful. However, a lot of elves have cool proficiencies: longbow, shortbow, scimitar, double scimitar, and Bladesinger only gives us one weapon proficiency, so getting another one is pretty cool. Also, the double scimitar is somewhat tempting, as it is a nice 2d4 weapon. However, Bladesong ends if we use two hands to make a weapon attack, and the double scimitar is double-handed. You need two hands to use it, so we can't really use it. However, we could dual-wield scimitars, and that would be very cool. But we get proficiency with one weapon, and we could choose short swords or scimitars or something like that and be fine, still dealing d6 damage. So, not sure that I'm sold on that type of elf. What about wood elves? Faster move speed is cool and makes us even faster. Longsword, short bow, and longbow is neat, but we can't really use the longsword. It does give us short sword proficiency for free, which is cool, which means we could use our Bladesinger proficiency for something else. Proficiency in perception is also quite nice because, yeah, but all elves get that, so not something to use it for in particular. Pallid elves, advantage on investigation and insight checks just for free. That's neat. Invisibility, sleep, and light cantrip are all nice little ribbons, but nothing brutally powerful that I think I need. Shadowkai is cool. It's better in the new update, I think. But it's cool, and you've got resistance to necrotic damage, and you can teleport once per long rest, which is cool. And at 3rd level, you gain resistance to all damage after you teleport, which is very good for a Bladesinger. But we're gonna have access to Misty Step. This is not a spell, which means we could cast something else, but we might be using cantrips or weapon attacks anyway for our action, so it doesn't really matter. So it doesn't seem worth it to me. Eladrin are neat. Again, they get Phase Step, which lets them just cast Misty Step for free every short rest, which is cool, but not that cool. And they get something because of their different types, right? Something like that. It makes it different. Oh, there are two different types of Eladrin. That's unfortunate. One of them is the Critical Role version. Right, Phase Step, and it's not a spell. You can magically teleport as a bonus action, so that's different. And it gains an additional effect at 3rd level, which is cool and good, but worth it? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it for my purposes. Elves are still interesting, though, and I'm still interested. What about the Erenes? One skill or tool proficiency, and they have advantage, or they have expertise in it. That's tempting in some ways, but probably we're not building to be a skill monkey. We don't really need the proficiency or the expertise. I think we're good. What about drow? Drow are cool. Charisma +1, not super useful. Would bump us to +2, but again, not super useful. Rapiers, short swords, and hand crossbows are all weapons that we could make very good use of. That is very nice. The biggest problem with drow is the sunlight sensitivity, which is really unfortunate. And we get the darkness spell, but we can't see through it because we're not going to be a Hexblade or anything, and Dark Vision as a spell doesn't let us see through it. There's just no way for us to get vision through that darkness without heavy investment either into Warlock or picking up Eldritch Adept feat or Blind Fighting style or something that's going to cause a dip and mess up the rest of our build. It's cool, and just having it would be useful anyway. Fairy Fire is maybe even more tempting, but we can't cast it with our spell slots later. We just get it, so it doesn't really save us a prepared spell. It just gives us Fairy Fire once per day, which is good. It's a great concentration spell, granting everybody advantage, including yourself, but it's burning an action to do it, and it's probably not worth it for us as a marshal to do so. We've got better options, I think. I think our straight flat damage is actually a better option. Huh. Okay, the proficiencies are very nice, though. Rapier, hand, crossbow, short sword, very, very nice. Of course, there is the half-elf, and there are a bunch of variants to it, and so let's look through them. Storm half-elves are cool. Gust cantrip and Gust of Wind, not bad. Featherfall, Fog Cloud, Gust of Wind, Levitate. These would save us some prepared spells. This is all neat. You do get less ability score increases, so we would lose con, which is unfortunate. What about the Mark of Detection? Wisdom +2, one other ability score increase. So that's not super good, but we can, of course, move those RE Tashas. Detect magic, detect poison of disease. Can also cast See Invisibility, which is very nice. Detect evil and good, detect poison of disease, detect thoughts, find traps, clairvoyance, non-detection. I'd say it's cool. It's a cool idea. Maybe not the best. So Aasimar get a +2/+1. And they get their transformations, which are cool, but they cost an action, and that's not cool. Aarakocra just to be a flying fucking Bladesinger would be super sick. But again, elves are kind of where I want to go with this. Gith are really neat. Just having shield for free is cool, and some other stuff they're all cool. Genasi are neat. Shifter is tempting, but it's too many bonus actions to stack. Kobold is tempting just because it's +2 to dexterity and Pack Tactics exists. That's very tempting, but not worth it. We have a familiar. And of course there's Variant Human, which would be cool. Actually, one of the human subraces might be really cool. Compelled dual Shield of Faith, Warding Bond, Zone of Truth, Counterspell, Protection from Energy. Holy shit, what? You are hit by the attack instead. I don't like that. You regain the ability to cast the shield spell after a long rest, and it's Wisdom. Con and Wisdom +1, but we can move those. Compelled dual Shield of Faith, warding. It opens up a bunch of spells that we don't get, but it takes a lot of damage onto us. Also, a wizard with Death Ward is so sick. That's such a cool idea. And protection from energy is really good. And it would give us counterspell for free, which we just don't have to, like, learn this way, I don't think. I guess we actually do have to learn it normally. We don't just know it. Oh, that's unfortunate. That does change things. It's still potentially really good. Okay, Finding Human. That gives us Hunter's Mark, right? That's cool. And maybe a bump to our damage. Same with Fairy Fire, Longstrider, but they're both, a lot of these are... a lot of them are concentration. Passage Human is tempting because it just gives you Misty Step, Pass Without a Trace, Expeditious Retreat, Jump, Blink, Phantom Steed, which is all really good. Dimension Door, Freedom of Movement. It gives you Dexterity, it increases your move speed, and one other ability score increase. Super tempting. And you gain Misty Step once per day. This is so far the front runner. Mark of Passage Human, front runner. I just wouldn't take Misty Step as a wizard spell. Handling is cool. It gives you friends and animals, Beacon of Hope, Aura of Life, Dominate. I mean, it gives you some healing stuff, which is neat, but this isn't good for us in particular. Making is cool for wizards as well. Intelligence +2, so it's already built for it. Mending, cast Magic Weapon. Lasts 1 hour and doesn't require concentration. Once per day. That's interesting. And you get it as a spell known. I'm going to look that up. I think I don't think it makes it +1, right? If it makes it +1, this might be worth it. It is +1. Now, it's not that useful once you can get a magic weapon. And I kind of want a 2-weapon fighting, so it's not as useful. It's still pretty cool. And then even if you get a magic weapon, you can put this on the other weapon and they're both good. It's kind of cool. And the other spells are cool too. Right? I mean, Fabricate's amazing on its own. Stone Shape. Identify, just to have, is cool. To Continual Flame. I mean, we don't really gain any spells for it, though. I'm going to go with the Mark of Passage Human. I think it's really fun, it's thematic, and it's interesting. Now, we're not an elf, which is interesting. I'm also going to leave the dex score +2 because having a 20 dex is the best possible thing we could possibly do right now. But I'm going to put the +1 into intelligence so that we are just a better wizard. I think that makes the most sense to me, right? I mean, still, we could put it in con and have more health, and that would be very nice for us because we only have 8 hit points. So we would have 9, and that would be better. that would be less bad. But here at level 1 as a wizard, we will be a Mark of Passage human. We will have the ability to add a d4 to all of our dexterity acrobatics checks, so we'll want to pick up proficiency for that as well. We are faster than all of our friends because we are 35 feet for free, no problem, no sweat, and we can obviously bump that with a bunch of other things. And we will have access to Expeditious Retreat and Jump. Although we would already have access to those as wizard spells, we will have to learn spells anyway. As for our language that I think we should know, I think it's pretty obvious that we should know Elvish. And the reason for that is obvious. Bladesingers are generally elves. And so if we have any training in becoming a Bladesinger, we will have had to have gotten it from the elves. And I think this makes sense for our Mark of Passage human. The House of Passage manages land transportation, blah, 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 runs caravans and coaches, focus on ensuring that the fastest vehicles are driven by heirs with the Mark of Passage. So we were a courier, a transporter, someone who takes things from one place to another, and thus would be someone who has explored a lot of the world. And perhaps at some point in our work as such, as a young scion of the House of Passage, whatever that is in your setting or in your world, perhaps we found ourselves frequently delivering objects to and from, I don't know, a wizard school in an elven city. And they may have invited us in for a little bit of training as perhaps thanks for a job well done, and taught us some of their ways in oddly generous fashion for elves, depending on your setting. High elves in my setting are not very nice people. Don't like, a little bit racist. I mean, they live forever. Everybody else is like ants to them, so it kind of makes sense to me. Anyway, I think this also makes sense to me in other ways. If you were a human in a world where elves are greedy with their knowledge, perhaps you have focused on and put effort into stealing that knowledge, which maybe is cool. And then maybe you might think about like a criminal background or something, which would really actually work really well for us because it would bump your stealth and give you some proficiencies that would be useful. We might actually end up criminal anyway. For reasons, but I think the House of Passage human, Mark of Passage human, is probably a good idea for us. It gives us good ability scores. It puts us, I mean, we can go to abilities and see the totals now. We're at 20 dex, which is amazing for a level 1 character. 15 constitution, 16 intelligence, which is good. I might switch that around. I don't know. 12 wisdom, which is fine, and 13 charisma, which is not too shabby. And of course, we are not a strong individual, but we're not terribly weak either, and that's pretty good. I think I will turn on the lights because the light is fading. Boop. And give me a moment. Yes, the sun is going down, so I wanted to change my blinds and turn the lights on, and now we are quite bright. Maybe too bright, but that's okay. Make sure that that doesn't reflect too badly. Get a nice contrast going, you know? Ooh, it is 6 p.m. Yeah, I'll still drink a little tea. I'm fine. Okay, so we've made our first couple of really core choices. Those are I want to build a blade singing wizard because it's sick as fuck and it can be really powerful if you do it right. And I'm going to play it as a Mark of Passage human, which gives us some cool things. Maybe it's not the most optimal for all sorts of reasons. I mean, obviously, I think there are solid reasons why you would decide not to do this and would instead decide to either start fighter or go custom lineage for obvious reasons. To be clear, let's just mess with this for a second. I can go and put all of that back exactly the way it was. If we were custom lineage, for example, if we were part elf, part something else, whatever we want to skin it as or be. If we're still a medium-sized creature, which we probably want to be, though we could be small if we wanted to, we can still bump our dexterity. Now we're missing that bump to our intelligence, which hurts us in our wizardliness, but it doesn't hurt us in our martial capabilities one bit, so that's cool. And we could grab dark vision because it's free. Obviously it's not free. You are choosing something instead of a proficiency, but I think dark vision's worth it. We could get something really cool, right? Like we get a crazy fucking feat. We could get dual wielder from level 1, for example, granting ourselves a flat +1 bonus to armor class while wielding 2 weapons, which we plan to be doing for most of our career, letting us dual wield rapiers instead of scimitars or short swords and draw them as we wish, which is very useful if we want to cast a concentration spell that requires somatic components, and then we can use our object interaction to draw our swords and do whatever else we're trying to do during that turn. Quite nice in a lot of very valuable ways. However, still doesn't give us the bonus of adding our damage to the second attack or the bonus action attack, though that's not very powerful anyway. It would be cool. It does give us the +1 to AC, which is really tempting, and we might actually just take this fighting style or take this feat at level 4. Although the temptation to bump int and bump con by 1 at level 4 is also quite good. I don't know if it's worth it considering the way that we're going to be using cantrips for damage and weapon attacks for damage. I don't know if it's worth that int bump. It's probably worth the con bump, though. The health is important. We are a melee character with a d6 hit die, and that's a problem. So this would be an alternative option. Dual wielder would be good. I don't know. I mean, mobile would be good. Mobile would be exceptional. Bumps us to 45 feet of movement speed. Difficult terrain doesn't affect us if we dash, and when we make a melee attack, we can just walk away, which means if we booming blade them, we can just walk away afterward, and they have to chase us. This might be what we do at level 4 as well. It also might be what we take immediately. There is one thing, though. I mean, this would be really good between levels 1 and 4. Like, really extraordinary for us early on in the game before shit gets crazy for us. When you make a melee attack, and we do make a melee weapon attack during Booming Blade, we don't get to use our 2-weapon fighting with it, which is part of the thing, but we do get... Oh, that's actually really interesting. I might do this. I might do this instead. Because mobile is too good. It's actually too good for our purposes. Okay, we're going to take mobile. Our movement speed, it actually works. If we just skin it exactly the same way, it works better. We lose a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to go and I'm going to look at Mark of Passage again, and I'm going to think about it for a second. Mobile is really good because it's always on. There's no nothing. I mean, it gives us a flat 10 to our movement speed already, so it makes us faster than we would be with this. Takes us to 40. It actually doesn't take us to 45. Mobile plus Mark of Passage would be the best, right? And we might do that. That's the reason that I'm thinking maybe we're okay. But what it does for us but before level 4 is fantastic for our survivability in combat. It would allow us to disengage from creatures while attacking them, and that's just very, very good for staying out of range while being a melee character, which is good for us because we're, again, quite squishy. We don't have that many hit points, and we still want to make melee weapon attacks quite a bit. Okay. You do get Misty Step for free. And, okay, you get it for free from level 1. So even though you can't cast Misty Step, you get it. And then you get it as a spell, which we would anyway, but... So that still lets us get out if we have to on our turn. And we can still Booming Blade Misty Step away, which is still really good. Dexterity is your spellcasting ability, which is neat, but doesn't really change anything. And it gives us an additional +1 to the intelligence. It's worth it. It's worth it. We're gonna go. I keep backing and forthing, but we're going to do this. We're going to go with the human. We're going to be a little bit less interesting. Maybe a little bit more interesting. I don't know. It's a trade-off. I think both are fair. I think if you want to take custom lineage and take a feat from level 1, or even variant human and take a feat from level 1 and take mobile, I think that's a totally valid way to build this character. What I'm actually doing is I'm staving off some of our power until a little bit later in order to get this once per day Misty Step, the acrobatics checks plus D4. Is it worth it though? And the +1 to intelligence. Now I'm second guessing myself again. No. Custom lineage mobile. It helps us so much levels 1 through 3. Fuck. But I'm going to regret it. No, because then we can ASI +1/+1. Dual wielder would also be really good. Dexterity. Medium. Dark vision. Elvish still. Still thinking of a human. Maybe a weird half-elf. Maybe a mark of finding human with a half-elf. Something like that. Or a mark of passage human with a half-elf. Skill proficiencies, I don't know yet. I mean, the wizard skill list isn't great. It's cool, but it isn't great. Lineage-wise, we are dex-based. I would love to take something that gives us some proficiencies in things that are useful to us from dex. I will check, like, smugglers, athletics, deception. Oh, these are backgrounds from somewhere else. Sleight of hand, stealth, disguise kit, thieves' tools, urchin is always very good, but I don't know how an urchin would be learning this stuff. Deception, insight, persuasion, stealth. It'd be lovely to have thieves' tools proficiencies. I don't really want the disguise kit. We can pick up disguise self if we want it. I don't really care. Gladiator's actually kind of cool. Acrobatics, performance, disguise kit. But I can't pick up the thieves' tools. Does it let me get a weapon? Ooh, Gladiator's worth it. Okay, actually, Gladiator's super worth it because it lets me get a weapon early. I mean, I'll still be able to get one early anyway, but it's still good. Acrobatics is great. We have that plus D4 to it, and now we get proficiency in it. That makes it really good. And we get to do stuff with Blade Song with it, which is super good. I don't know how useful that will be. It'll be up to you and your creativity and your DM. As for a thing, I always like to go with the pan flute. I feel like it's thematically interesting. Where is it? Pan flute. There we go. Pan flute because it's thematically interesting, and that gives us our choice of starting equipment as well. We're going to grab that dagger for sure because we would love to have it. I'll take the arcane focus instead of a component pouch because it's important. I would love to have a wand. Something small and easy peasy to stow and deal with. Not that it makes much of a difference, but I don't want a, like, staff. Scholar's pack kind of sucks. A book of lore, a bottle of ink, an ink pen, a little bag of sand, and a small knife. It's all very cool. I would rather have this. Some torches, some rations, a water skin, some rope. Yes, please. An inexpensive but unusual weapon. I would love to have... Well... So that's the thing. We could just do gold buy. Let me just do gold buy. Gold. What is it? 44 times 10? Oh. It's actually rolling the 44. Okay, so I'm going to do the next roll. That's fantastic. Great. 160 gold pieces. Wonderful. So I'm going to do starting buy items up to 160 gold pieces worth. Armor, we want light armor. Ooh, proficient, common, not magical. I'm not proficient in any armor. I will be at level 2, though. Let me just change it now so that I can choose the proficiencies, and then I'll change it back. Okay. Blade singing. Done. Performance skill was removed from your background. I get to choose a new background skill. That's great. That's actually amazing. Okay, great. We're going to choose the scimitar, I think, as our one-handed melee weapon. Actually, I'm going to choose short swords. It's more likely that you'll be able to pick up short swords, and also they're cheaper. So early in our career, we will be having short swords. If we get proficiency elsewhere, we'll do that. Acrobatics, and we get to choose almost anything. Amazing. We're going to take stealth. Let's fucking go. We get stealth proficiency. Now, we don't get to choose thieves' tools, which is unfortunate, but I want that stealth proficiency. Absolutely. Current inventory is nothing. I would love to have... I'm still going to get an explorer's pack, which is going to cost us 10 gold pieces, so we're at 150. Done. Easily chosen. We get armor proficiencies. Now, I could, of course, get that delicious elven chain, right? Where is it? Elven chain. Medium armor, chain shirt. +1 AC. Proficiency, even if you lack the proficiency, is really good. We're not going to have that at level 1, though. We get gold buy. And it's a magic item, so technically we can't buy it, so it doesn't matter. We're just going to do armor that we are proficient with that is common, not magical. And that is only light armor. Leather, studded leather. We will hard easy, no problem, no sweat. We're going to drop 45 gold pieces on studded leather. That brings us to 105 gold pieces total left. Boom. Add. Super worth it. Obviously, we could go down 1 armor class for 35 gold pieces. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. Studded leather armor. We put it on the moment we get it, and we get it at level 1. Let's go. Short swords. Oops. Short swords. They are 10 gold pieces. What about scimitars? What? Proficient common. I don't want proficient scimitars. They are 25 gold pieces. Okay, well, it looks like... And rapiers? Just to check. 25 gold pieces. Short swords, then. Seems like the move, right? There's no reason to choose a scimitar otherwise, right? I mean, there are much better rapiers, obviously. We don't have dual wielders, so we can't be using those anyway. There are cool scimitars. Scimitars are everything. But what about short swords? I think they count as all the sword things, right? Yeah, they count as all the short sword things. Short swords are great. Cool. We're going to buy 2 short swords. They're 10 gold pieces. That's perfect. Add 1, add 2, and we have them. We can't really use them at level 1, but we have them. We do get, in general, we get a dagger at level 1, and I'm going to buy one. It's 2 gold pieces. So that's 20 more from the short swords. This takes us to 85, and then 2 more from the dagger. I'll say 2 more for another dagger just to have it in case we want to dual wield them, which we can. And we'll just say that that's 80. I'll sacrifice one gold. Great. That's pretty good for now. Let me wield a short sword and wield a dagger just to have them wielded. Okay, cool. So we have 80 gold to work with. We can't buy magic items really, unfortunately, which sucks. We can't use a shield. Can't buy wondrous items. Can't buy scrolls. Can't buy potions. Don't need armor. Have 80 gold left over. Maybe we just have 80 gold to start with. That's fucking sick. Okay. I mean, we can take that. 80. Done. Ooh, can I get like a wand? Yeah, an arcane focus. It's 10 gold. Done. So 70 gold. Great. I still need an arcane focus, I think. Or I guess I could have a component pouch because it's cheaper, right? I also like components as a thing. I prefer... Oh, it's 25 gold. We're going to take an arcane focus then. Okay. Cool. What else do we need? Well, we're going to be a wizard. We're going to be starved for gold from level 1 onward. Like, we can take assumptions based on how much gold we can accumulate, assumed per character level. But we're going to need to be spending a lot of that gold on spells and stuff. So I think it's chill to just start with 70 gold in your pocket and be able to maybe buy a spell later or buy something from if you can find another wizard who can let you copy a spell from them, you can buy some paper. That's really good. Cool. We could also go and we could buy random adventuring gear, which is actually a very good idea. What do I have? I've got a pan flute and a disguise kit proficiencies. Let's go ahead and buy a disguise kit. Just because it's 25 gold pieces. Fuck, bro. That takes us to 45. Shit. Still probably worth having. And a pan flute? Please tell me it's not 20. That's 12 gold. What about a flute? 2 gold. That's a little bit more reasonable. Well, I'm going to change that proficiency because pan flutes are expensive and our gladiator don't have no time for that shit. Play your flute, bro. Okay, we got a flute. That's good. Let's just do other gear, right? Common magic. I don't want magical, though. This is all stuff. These are people. Ball bearings are cool. I can't buy them. They don't have a cost associated, even though they should. Blankets, bottles, candles, carpenter's tools, climber's kits, component pouches, cook's utensils. Okay, there's nothing else that I want. We're just chilling. So we've got our studded leather armor, by far the most expensive thing that we've purchased, and our best purchase by far. It bumps our AC by 2. Like, what else could be better than that? We've got 2 short swords to wield, got a couple of daggers that we can throw if we need to for any reason, and we're chilling at level 1. We can't actually, I don't think, even wield the short swords at the moment. Nope, but we can wield the dagger, and that's good enough. We could also pick up a light crossbow and use that instead. It would be our best damage option at the moment, but we're not going to because we can 2-up and fight with daggers, and that seems better to me. And it also seems more thematically viable for this character. Although, yeah, no, we took mobile, so that's exactly what we're going to do. Great. And I'm going to choose our proficiencies here. We're going to take Arcana because we are a fucking wizard, and we're going to take Investigation because it's my favorite of this list. That's my only reason for doing it. We're not level 2 yet. We're level 1. And we get to choose our first set of wizard spells. Also, additional wizard spells, these are already mixed in. I don't have to click this. And cantrip formulas lets us switch cantrips when we finish a long rest at 3rd level. We'll do that, but I probably won't be making use of it. We'll probably end up pretty locked into our cantrip choices. We get 3. One of them is Booming Blade. There's just no chance that we're not taking Booming Blade here. The second one, I'm actually quite tempted to get Green Flame Blade as well. However, we're still not going to be able to be 2-up and fighting, doing like Green Flame Blade or Booming Blade. The damage to another target, though, is really nice when you need it. However, there are other things worth our time here, and they aren't always in combat. I think it's pretty obvious that we're going to be in situations where someone is further away from us than we can hit them with a weapon, and so we need one cantrip for that option, for that situation. One choice of cantrip for that situation is Toll the Dead. It gives us the most damage, the 1d12 necrotic. It's on a wisdom save, which is usually pretty good, especially if the creature is missing any hit points. Obviously, it's a d8 otherwise, so it's plus or minus. It's good or bad. For more simple damage that will be resisted more frequently later, Firebolt is better, but if we have cantrip formulas, we can swap it out. Me, personally, I'm tempted to take Firebolt as an at-range damage option since we're not taking a crossbow or a hand crossbow or planning to use any of the above. Although we could, and it would be cool, and we could do things with that with Crossbow Expert and all sorts of cool things with the Bladesinger. I've thought about that as an option. I don't want to do it with this build. I want to be melee, which is a limitation, but maybe still a cool thing. Let's take Firebolt, because if we're not in melee and we want to be doing damage anyway and we can't get to them, which should be hard considering we will have a 40 feet of movement speed, we can still do some damage at range, and that's very nice. And then we're probably going to take Mage Hand. Now, alternatively, you could skip Booming Blade for a while. We get another cantrip later in levels, and that's possible as an option, but I don't think it's a good option because we already have mobile. Booming Blade's really good for us. And we could also take, instead of Mage Hand, or even instead of Firebolt, since we don't plan on this being our primary choice, you could take not Firebolt and take something more versatile and valuable. For example, Mind Sliver, which takes away a d4 from their next saving throw. It's on an int save, and it's d6 psychic damage. Very nice, reliable damage, which is very cool and has a very good effect on it as well. Or something more utility, like Shape Water, which is endlessly versatile, or Prestidigitation, which is endlessly versatile and is very tempting. I think Mage Hand is the move for me because I'd like to have it. Firebolt, I think I'm going to skip because it doesn't factor into the way we're going to calculate our primary damage for this character. I don't want to be using Firebolt. If I can help it, I might pick it up later. I think I am going to grab Prestidigitation, which is non-quantifiable, but incredibly powerful. Hard to tell you how powerful, because you're a different wizard than I am, but man, it is interesting. And then we get to learn some spells. We learn 3 to start because of our intelligence modifier, and that's cool. I think it's obvious that we should have the shield spell. We are not going to take the mage armor spell. Just not going to take it. We're going to use studded leather. I think it makes more sense for us. We're going to learn Find Familiar. And if we're limited, if our DM is limiting, it is only going to limit us to the 3 spells that we get to start with. I don't know what the next one should be. We have proficiency in a disguise kit, so we don't need disguise self. It's a little bit less good, but it's still good enough. Identify is probably really valuable. There are so many good options in the first level wizard spells. For real, there are just so many. I think we're going to take Absorb Elements at first level. This gives us all of our core stuff immediately. Starting at level 1, we have literally everything we need to be the base core of this character, and almost everything else that we learn or do is going to add to it. Now, there is something cool, and we're going to go to our spell book and we're going to prepare these 3 spells because they will be the spells that we prepare, and they're the limit. That's the limit on our prepared spells. This is going to be what we look like on our adventuring day, regardless. I will say we have the money that I think any generous DM would say we could work for a couple days or do whatever before we start our game, before we start our campaign, and just take our current currency of 43 gold pieces, burn it, and say that we bought the about 50 gold pieces necessary, hopefully, I think that's right, to learn a new spell. Let me check. Learning spells, copying a spell, process for each level takes 2 hours and costs 50 gold pieces. So we're 7 gold pieces shy. We can earn those, and I think we're going to just nix that and be easy on ourselves, be nice to ourselves, and just say that we have 1 additional spell learned. We won't be able to prepare it regardless, and it's not actually going to change our day, but let's say that we have 1 additional spell learned, and I think we would take 1 control spell, and we'd be able to switch this out for Find Familiar after we've already cast Find Familiar and have our Familiar up. If we don't expect to have to resummon our Familiar, then we don't need to have this prepared anymore, and even if we don't have to prepare it anyway, right? So because it's a ritual spell, we just don't have to prepare it. We can cast it as a ritual anyway. So let's say that we would take Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Bink, bonk, bang. So we learn Tasha's Hideous Laughter. On our first day, we would... Oh, wait, I unlearned Find Familiar. That's not what I wanted to do. Let me fix it. I learned this. On our first day, we would have Find Familiar prepared. We would cast Find Familiar. We would have a Familiar, or if your DM is generous, you just have your Familiar from day 1 because that seems to make sense. And we will have Find Familiar forever, and we will instead, every morning when we wake up, prepare Tasha's Hideous Laughter as long as we are a level 1 character. So we have an option for our concentration spell, which will lock down and knock out 1 creature, making them fall prone, becoming incapacitated, which interrupts concentration, by the way, and is very good, and preventing them from doing literally anything. Obviously, they get to make wisdom saves every turn, but we have a 16 in intelligence. Our save is pretty good, and for the ability to take 1 creature out of the fight and grant everybody advantage because they're prone if they're making melee weapon attacks, Tasha's is wonderful, and so we will take that shit to the bank. Let's go ahead. Now that we've built out everything, selected everything that we can for our level 1 melee wizard, let's go ahead and look at our character sheet and do ourselves a little damage report of some sort, to some extent. Now, Yes. So that is an issue. I guess we don't have proficiency in the studded leather armor yet. So our armor class is not 17. Unfortunately, our armor class is 15, unless we want to take fucking disadvantage on all our saving throws and all our fucking stealths and things. And we don't want to do that. So at level 1, our armor class is 15, and that's really good. We have a 20 dexterity, which is some bullshit for a wizard, but our armor class is 15, which is as good as most level 1 wizards get with mage armor. If we had mage armor on, we'd be chilling at a sweet and sexy 18, but we don't, and we don't frankly want to burn one of our very limited 2 first level spell slots on doing that. We would rather reserve those spell slots for saving our own ass with a shield or an absorb elements if we can, or if we are forced to, potentially taking an enemy out of the fight for a while on a still low but a pretty good wisdom saving throw. Oh, right, our intelligence is only 15 because we're a custom lineage. That's fine. So basically, we won't be using Tasha's at the moment. It's not as good as I said. Maybe we might take sleep here instead. It's maybe more useful, arguably. That's a fair point, and will remain useful for a while for groups of enemies and low HP targets and stuff. That's okay. Regardless, our game plan, we are not proficient with the short sword, which is why we don't get to add our proficiency bonus to the hit. I suppose you could use it, but you shouldn't. But our game plan is to use our immense +5 to initiative and our huge 40 feet of walking speed to, with our measly 8 hit points, walk straight up to a character, hopefully with at least 5 feet of movement speed of our own remaining. If we have more, we're going to use it. We want to walk straight up to that character while carrying a single dagger and maybe our wand. We don't really need it out, but we couldn't carry it, and that's cool. We could also carry a second dagger, but there's no point in doing so since we're not going to be making 2 attacks this round. It's not worth it for us to be doing the 2-weapon fighting. Instead, it's more worth it for us to cast the Booming Blade spell, which is a cantrip, and as part of the cantrip, we brandish the weapon used, which will be our dagger, and we don't need any other components for it. It's just that, and we will slice out at an enemy, or I guess stab them with our dagger, dealing hopefully with a +7 to hit, and that's pretty good at this level. Hopefully, we should hit most creatures that we're fighting: kobolds, goblins, giant rats, things that have like a 10 to 12 AC. We should be hitting them 3/4 of the time, like 75% of the time, which is really quite good for us. Not too shabby at all. And we are going to be making a booming blade attack upon them. This doesn't deal any extra damage on hit, so we will deal our 1d4 +5 piercing damage, which is mediocre at best. An average of like 7.5 damage, which is not bad. And then we will quickly run away. As quickly as we can, we will get the fuck away from whatever we just hit. Hopefully, we have more than a bit of our movement speed left. That would be very nice. But as part of this whole combat round, we have now sheathed our enemy in booming damage and moved away from them. So hopefully, they will be not in melee with any of our friends when it comes around to their turn, and they will have to move in some direction or another, and in doing so, we'll take immediately 1d8 of thunder damage, which means that our total damage caused per round is 1d4 plus 1d8 plus 5. That's not bad. That's a little bit better. So our 7.5 gets, I think, 4.5 from the 1d8, so it goes up to 10, 11.5 if we hit. Now, the thing about us hitting is really interesting because we have a familiar. The familiar rolls initiative and it acts on its own. So if it rolls really high initiative and rolls faster than us, or if you have a DM that lets your familiar simply act before you because that's more useful, which I'm just going to check and make sure that Find Familiar isn't that other spell where it works at a different time. It rolls its own initiative and acts on its own turn. Beautiful. And you don't have to do anything, bonus action, whatever, to command it to do something. You just don't have to do that. Yep, fully acts independently of you. Fantastic. So, Our familiar can fly because we took an owl, because we are not dumb and it's the best choice available to us. Our familiar can fly into the enemy that we are attacking as we run up to them. We booming blade attack them with our 1d4 dagger attack, whatever, with advantage, which is lovely. It gives us the equivalent of about a +5 to hit. Is the equivalent mathematically for advantage, which means that our equivalent plus to hit is about +12, which means we will almost every time hit the kobold or goblin or other small creature that we are attacking on round 1. We will be able to run away, and our familiar will be able to fly away with the flyby feature that owls have after taking the help action to help us. If your familiar is at a weird time in the initiative order, what you can simply do is have them hold their turn to give the help action to you right before your turn, and that's something that they can do. Unfortunately, then they can't fly away. It can get complicated, but don't worry about it too much. Generally, most DMs will be relatively reasonable with this and just be like, yeah, you've got the familiar, it does the help action, you get the advantage on one attack. That's good. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's nice. It's neat. Very good for you. Bully for you. And it is bully for us. But that's our damage round. We're dealing like 14 damage on average if we hit, and we almost always will against the types of things that we're fighting. Unfortunately, if we get hit, obviously if we get crit by a goblin, we probably full die. That's just the way that it is, being a low hit die character at level 1. Welcome to the world. But that will all change quite soon. So we have in our campaign and in our character's life gone around a little bit and become a little bit more invested in fighting. We've perhaps cleared out a sewer of some rats, or perhaps fought off an invading tribe of goblins, or something. In any case, the world has decided that we have gained a little bit more power, and our dungeon master has decided that it is time for us to level up. So let us go about doing so. Ooh, do you think we should roll hit points? Let's roll hit points. So we'll go with it base here, but let me choose rolled hit points. I think that's cool. Ability score modifier, ignore coin weight, hit point type, manual. Manual hit points, let's go. Abilities, class, level 2. So it already adds our 2 hit points from our constitution modifier. And we get 1d6 added to that. I think... I'm just going to open this, and I think I can just roll a d6 somewhere. This has a d6. I'm just going to roll this d6. It's a 5. That's fucking sick. So I rolled it on camera. You saw it happen, and we add 5 hit points. Now, obviously, so we add that to our rolled HP, 11. Obviously, you might roll lower. I think the base would take us to 12. Regardless, we are a lot better off than we were at level 1. We are slightly less easy to insta-gib, which is wonderful. Right, total average HP would be 13. Totally fine. Total fixed value HP would be 14. Totally fine. Apply. And we're 1 away from total possible because we get the 6, and then we got a 5, which is wonderful, and that's great for us, but it wouldn't always happen. But it is great for us, and it's worth it to roll those hit dice, I think, because you can do cool things. But we level up. Of course, we should maybe talk about some of our wizard stuff. We got spellcasting, we know that. We also got arcane recovery, which lets us get some of our spell slots back, which is cool. And at level 2, we get our wizard subclass, which is why we're here, baby. This is the reason for everything. And we are, of course, there's only one thing to choose, and it's not war magic, it is blade singing, and that's what we're going to do. So this would remove the performance skill from our background, which means we should go and put that as something else, and we are going to once again choose stealth because it's worth it. I think any DM worth their salt will let you change that from your background. It's totally fine. It's just that it swaps from one to the other, and you don't have a choice of getting this, and it just takes it away, so it's fine. We would have done that from the beginning, and that's totally okay. We also get a one-handed melee weapon that we are proficient with, and of course, we have them sitting in our backpack, and so we have been waiting to pick up these elven short swords that we've been wanting to use, but we haven't been confident enough in our martial prowess to do it. But after using some daggers and running around and imbuing them with the magic that we've learned in our wizard school, we have decided that it is finally time to pick up the greater blades. And so we pick up our short sword proficiency, and we have it. We also learn that we can sing while we're fighting, and it does some interesting things for us. Now, there are limitations to blade song, and they're huge. You cannot wear medium armor or heavy armor or use a shield. Rough. but that's okay. It graces you with supernatural speed, agility, and focus. Cute. And that's great. You can use a bonus action to start the Blade Song, which lasts for 1 minute. It doesn't cost anything else, has no components, is not a spell. It ends early if you are incapacitated. That sucks. If you don medium or heavy armor or a shield, which you shouldn't do anyway, or if you use 2 hands to make an attack with a weapon, which you shouldn't do anyway. You can also dismiss it at any time. No action required, though why you would, I don't know. You gain, while the Blade Song is active, you gain the following benefits. You gain a bonus to your armor class equal to your intelligence modifier, minimum of +1. For us right now, that would be a +2, which is still lovely, especially because we get to put on our studded leather armor. Let me go and do that really quickly. Equipment, drop studded leather armor. I'll wield the second short sword, even though I don't need to, and I'll drop the dagger because we don't need it anymore. Though we might hold on to it for throwing purposes. We don't need it right now. You gain a bonus to AC equal to your intelligence modifier. Your walking speed increases by 10 feet, and you have advantage on dexterity acrobatics checks, which is amazing because we already have proficiency in them and a d4 to them. That's really cool. Tell your DM that you want to do acrobatics to jump over a guy to not take an opportunity attack, and you've got mobile and stuff, and let yourself do that and do cool monk shit without being a monk. You're already faster than a monk at this level, and you're more mobile than a monk at this level, and you're fucking dope, and you have way better acrobatics than any monk worth their salt because you have +5 to dex and proficiency in acrobatics and a d4 to it. You're bonkers. You're buko bonkers. It's great. And you gain a bonus to any constitution saving throw you make to maintain concentration on a spell equal to your intelligence modifier. This is the why. This is the reason that we're here in Bladesinger. There's another reason that we're here in Bladesinger, and it's the reason that we're going to stay in Bladesinger. But also, wizards are good, and it's really hard to multi-class out of wizard. So if you can figure out a way to be a wizard and not multi-class out of wizard, it's really good to do exactly that. Anyway, very cool. We get, I believe we get an additional spell prepared, which is lovely. I think we also get 2 more spells known. So I'm going to go grab 1 more spell because we might as well learn 1 more spell that we just learn and can just put in our book, which is lovely. Maybe jump to work with our acrobatics would be cool. I'm tempted by ritual spells, though. Maybe Expeditious Retreat, Detect Magic, or Identify are the things that I'm really looking at right now. Nothing else is going to bump our damage hugely. Featherfall would be great to have just for reasons, because sometimes you die from falling off cliffs, and just having it early is very nice. Snare is neat, but not that cool, not that good. Unseen Servant is a ritual and is quite useful and can be quite useful. I don't know. I think I'm just going to take Detect Magic, because as we learn more about the magical world around us, we know that there are lots of crazy magical things. We don't need to prepare it, which is cool. Oh, we get 2, actually. Hold on. We don't need to prepare it, which is cool. Hold on. 6 first level. Oh, you have a spell book containing 6 first level wizard spells is what you know. Fuck, dude, I forgot. Okay, so I'm not even at that. And then every level... Learning spells at first level or higher. Each time you gain a wizard level, you can add 2 wizard spells. So we should have 8 wizard spells known. Holy shit. That's so sick. Okay, we at level 2 have 8 wizard spells known. We can only prepare 4, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to go learn 8 because I only know 5. Great. Let's go ahead and grab... let's pick up Charm Person because it's cool. Let's pick up Expeditious Retreat in case we got to go fast. And I'm going to also get Unseen Servant, I think, because it's a ritual spell and we don't need to prepare it. Ooh, actually, I'm sorry, Identify. We're just going to grab Identify because it's a ritual spell and we don't need to prepare it. These are all of the 8 spells that we know. Oh, and 1 extra because I paid the money to learn it. Because I did go and pay the money. We have to remember that we did that. We have 1 additional spell known. I'm going to grab Magic Missile because sometimes you're going to need it. And so we will know that. And then as for our prepared spells on our general adventuring day, we'll keep Tasha's just because. We don't need to find Familiar prepared, Identify. I think we will grab Charm Person simply so that we can use it. Yeah, Charmed. They know that they were charmed by you, which sucks. But if we need it, we need it. And it's useful for expanding our value to our party outside of combat. Because here at level 2, with some of the things that we've gotten, namely proficiency with light armor and proficiency with 1 weapon, we are suddenly a lot more powerful in some pretty interesting ways. So let's check that out. First off, let me just check something about 2-weapon fighting. When you take the attack action, doesn't count for right now. Will count later. Very interesting. Very cool. We'll deal with that later. For now, however, we should be only wielding one short sword because we don't need two. We'll hold on to a dagger. We're not technically wielding it right now, but in case we need to throw one, we can, and that's good. It's now our good range damage option up to 20 feet away for us, and that's useful, and we can still use our familiar to grant advantage on that if we'd like to, which is still very useful. But our damage now, our whole game plan now is, first off, our armor class is 17 as a base. When we are using Blade Song, we gain a +2 bonus to our armor class, a +2 bonus to any constitution saving throws, and that's about it, as well as advantage on acrobatics checks and +10 to our movement speed. So now, on level 2, we will bonus action Blade Song. We will have our familiar run in and use the help action. We will run up to our enemy now with our 50 feet of movement speed. We will make our booming blade attack, which is now 1d6 + 5, and we will run away. And we make that 1d6 + 5 with advantage, so our crit chance is increased and our attack damage is increased and our chance to hit is very, very good. Approximately +12 is what we would think of it as mechanically, but of course it's advantage with +7. And we will run the hell away from them, hopefully causing them to take the triggering booming energy damage of 1d8, giving us an average damage of 3.5 + 5 + 4.5, which is 7. 8 + 5 is an average damage of 13. Not too shabby for a level 1 wizard. Comparatively, your average level 1 wizard will be doing something with their bonus action, maybe, and will be using their action to cast like a firebolt, dealing an average of 5.5 damage, because that's the average damage of a 1d10 if they hit. And they may have advantage from a familiar, and that's very good for them if they do. They don't really have any bonus action spells to be casting at this level. They don't really have any other things that they could be doing at this level. We are much better off. Also, we're chillin' running around with a 19 armor class for free, and we can easily, with a reaction and one of our 3 first level spell slots, buff that up to a 24 armor class as a reaction if we need to, just to block an incoming hit, because we're still relatively squishy. It's going to be very hard for anything to hit us, and if it does hit us, we can always just cast shield and be like, nah. And honestly, like, a kobold is not going to hit us if we have a 24 armor class, unless it's critting or rolling, I think, a 19. I forget what kobold stats are. That's fucking dope. We are a strong level 2 character, and we're just going to keep getting stronger, so let's go ahead and do it. Our adventuring life has continued on into the future. We have combined our martial prowess with our spell casting, and it's time for us to learn more about spells. So we are going to go ahead and decide that at some point during our campaign, we have leveled up for whatever reason. We have achieved something. We gain that cantrip formulas feature, which is pretty cool. We can swap our cantrips when we do a long rest. That's pretty cool, or at least we can swap one. Nothing wrong with that to me. It doesn't seem super powerful. It gives us a little bit of versatility, but it's not crazy. However, the big thing that we get at this level is obvious, and it is 2nd level wizard spells. Oh, baby. 2nd level wizard spells are great. There are a ton of amazing options here. We do not get the Misty Step spell from our class or from our race anymore, so I think it is obvious that we should grab the Misty Step spell. It is just necessary. The other spell that I am particularly interested in for this character's build, the other spell that I'm particularly intrigued by, there are a lot of options. There are ways to build a cool Cloud of Daggers character. There are ways to utilize darkness. There are ways to use hold person and guarantee ourselves critical hits, maybe, although on a different turn because we're not a sorcerer and we're not quickening things, so it's different. Hell, it's even useful to take knock, but maybe situational. But the spell that screams out to me, there are two. There are 2 spells that scream out to me as very powerful and very useful at this character level. The first of those 2 is the Shadowblade spell. It's pretty cool. You create a Sword of Solidified Gloom. It is a magic sword that lasts until the spell ends. It counts as a simple melee weapon with which you are proficient. It deals 2d8 psychic damage and has the finesse, light, and thrown properties, meaning we can use our dexterity for damage, which is exactly what we want, and we can also throw it if we want to. And we get free advantage anytime we use the sword to attack a target that is in dim light or darkness. That's really good. And also, if we throw it or drop it, we can use a bonus action to make it reappear. That's really good. It would bump our damage not only to from a d6 to a d8, but to 2d8 on every single attack that we make. There's only one flaw with Shadowblade, really, and that is that rules as written, Booming Blade requires a melee weapon worth at least 1 silver piece. This is deeply unfortunate for us, because the Shadowblade isn't a melee weapon worth 1 silver piece. It's a Sword of Solidified Gloom. However, that's a material component for the spell. You brandish the weapon used in the spell's casting and make a melee attack with it. It's really specific. I don't know if there's a way around it. I'm going to look for a sage advice just to see. Yeah. So this is going to be DM dependent. Unfortunately, it's gonna be really unfortunate. The blade is technically worthless. However, I think there are 2 ways that you can argue this with your DM. The first one is, I would argue, as a wizard, level 3, that my 2nd level spell slot is worth at least 1 silver piece. Now, that's a crazy idea, but I think there are ways that you can accomplish this really effectively if you really need to. I think there are DMs that would let you do this if you take some kind of a problem, some kind of an issue. Something silly. But here's what I would say. I would say that a continual flame torch, which has a ruby dust value worth 50 gold pieces. First off, you have to burn those ruby dust to make a continual flame torch. But you can sell a continual flame torch for maybe 100 gold pieces, or even 51 gold pieces. I think it's reasonable to expect that you could sell a continual flame torch for 51 gold pieces. And then you might be able to argue that your 2nd level spell slot is worth at least the 1 gold piece in value that you did from converting the ruby dust into a continual flame torch. So that's one way to argue it. Another way to argue it, which is maybe a simpler way, is to simply point to a tweet by Jeremy Crawford where he writes, "This change has nothing to do with prohibiting or allowing Shadowblade to combo with Booming or Green Flame Blade. It's about fixing those 2 cantrips. As a dungeon master, I'd allow them to combo since I make liberal use of the rule on improvised weapons. Similarly, the ability to potentially do a booming fist attack seems like a reasonable thing for me to do. Your DM may vary, but if you can weasel your way into the ability to use Booming Blade and Shadowblade, it is 100% worth the ability to do so. Even if you can't, Shadowblade might be worth it for lower levels. It won't be worth it later, but it will be worth it for lower levels. However, I am going to go ahead and go forward with this build, assuming that Shadowblade is a spell that you can pick up. I'm also going to assume that at 3rd level, you've earned a little bit of gold and can use that gold to buy 1 more spell. That might be an unfair assumption, but I'm going to do it anyway. At this level, we're going to pick up 3 2nd level spells. Maybe you saved your gold from earlier, the 43 gold that we had that we converted into 1 spell. I'm just going to assume that you've been able to buy 1 spell. I think it's a reasonable assumption. If you can't, you can't. But I'm going to do it for my purposes. Shadowblade is one of those spells. Misty Step is one of those spells. And the third one, the one that really screams out to me, is the Mirror Image spell. You create 3 illusory duplicates for a full minute. It costs an action to cast. They last for a minute, no concentration. The duplicates move around you, making it impossible to track which one is real. Each one of them is hittable, and you choose. It's hard for you to hit. It's a complicated spell. Go and read it. But it's very, very good, and it makes us way tankier against attacks, which is good. It's so complicated. It's a weird spell. But they're hard to destroy based on your dexterity modifier. Each duplicate will have an AC of 15. You will have a duplicate of an AC of way higher. It's great. These are all very good. There are lots of other good second level spells that are worth getting. Invisibility is awesome. Levitate is cool. If I were building like an archer version of this that wasn't using Booming Blade and would do less damage, I would have Levitate and be levitating in corners of rooms and stuff. But for our purposes right now, Shadowblade is the biggest bump to our damage that we could possibly have. And Misty Step is necessary for getting out of combat, although we have mobile, so usually we can just make an attack against somebody and then run away from them, hit or miss, and that's super great. Honestly, there's an argument to not even taking Misty Step for those reasons. And Mirror Image will give us a big bump to survivability if we really feel like we're going into an AC testing heavy fight. That'll be very good. As for our prepared spells, I'm going to drop out preparing probably Tasha's Hideous Laughter because I don't think we need it very much. I'm going to grab Shadowblade and I'm going to grab Misty Step. You could also unprepare Charm Person and grab Mirror Image if you'd like to, but then that's a lot of second level spells. I just want Misty Step in case, and I want Shadowblade because it's going to become a core part of our Nova Bursty damagey stuff as we move into the future. So let's go ahead and at level 3 talk about our current round of damage if we want to burn stuff like Shadowblade. Once again, we still don't have a use for our bonus action, so it doesn't cost us anything to burn that Shadowblade usage, and that's pretty fucking cool. So at our level 3 for a wizard, I have to roll for hit points. Let's roll for hit points. Oh, I guess I should be on that page anyway. I have to roll a d6. So here's our d6. It's a 3. That's a little less than average, and that's okay. So let me go add 3 to our hit points. Rolled HP goes to 14. It's not amazing, but we're at the 20 hit point barrier. Look at us, a beefy little wizard. Very, very good. Very, very good for us. All right, moving on. Our damage this round. Now, if we want to burn resources, with no resources, our damage is identical to the way that it was before. We run up to them, we Booming Blade with advantage thanks to our familiar. We deal 1d6 plus 5 plus 1d8 if they move, which we assume that they will. And we run away laughing with glee because we're awesome and they suck. Ha 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 ha, he 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 he, ho 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 ho, hoo 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 hoo. Very good. That's great. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that damage. Lovely, lovely stuff. However, if we would like to burn some resources, we have learned that we can take our magic and turn them into a better weapon than any spell, any smith can make for us. Our spellcraft is good enough. We understand blades and blade work well enough to know that exactly what we want to do and exactly how we want to do it. So while it doesn't appear here, in our big round, we have our familiar fly in and prep the way for us. We assume, of course, that we're already blade singing. Hopefully, if we're not, it doesn't really change anything for us. It just removes the move speed. Hopefully, we can still get to the target anyway. If we're already blade singing before we shadow blade, then that's totally fine. We can do that, and it'll help us with our con saves anyway. But in any case, blade singing doesn't directly increase our damage to the shadow blade round, so whatever. We bonus action cast shadow blade. We run up with our shadowy blade of darkness. We cast the Booming Blade spell. We make an attack with advantage, and that attack deals 2d8 plus 5. And has the Booming Blade Rider effect of 1d8. If you don't have the ability to convince your DM that you should be able to Booming Blade on Shadowblade, already the Jeremy Crawford tweet, or the fact that the spell you're casting makes the blade worthwhile in its own right, then simply casting Shadowblade is still more damage on average than Booming Blade at this level. That will change at level 5, but for now, it's still worth it. Although your still sustained damage output with just doing Booming Blade every round is really good too, and you might not want to burn the Shadowblade. But in any case, you might want to burn the Shadowblade for a minute because it will bump your damage a lot. Those 2d8 plus another d8 later, really tasty. 2d8 attacked with advantage, considering the chances that you might crit, pretty fucking good. You should be doing this. It's worth it for the damage. It's really good. If you want to get crazy, you can spend more time, more rounds doing setup, and potentially have mirror image running around you for, again, a base armor class of 19, plus multiple gates to putting damage into you, which is really good. As well as you've got, of course, shield if you want to use it as a reaction, and absorb elements if you get caught by one of those nasty spell effects that are really the bane of any high armor class wizard because they just hurt a lot. In any case, you deal more than respectable damage. 2d8 is 9 average damage, plus your 5 is 14, so not that much better than your whole Booming Blade combo, but if you're able to Booming Blade on top of it, you get another 4.5, so it takes you to 18.5 average damage if you're hitting, which you should be because you're at advantage. My DPR might be wrong on that, but that's okay. We're calculating it the same way each time, so it's wrong in the same way each time, and that's totally fine. Okay, wunderbar, wonderful. So, we get to move on to one of the more pivotal and interesting levels in our character's career. And this is another point where we're going to have to make some significant decisions. And I'm going to spend some time doing so and thinking about what to do at this level, because we are going to, as we've become better at Bladesinging, we've used our Shadowblade to take out foes way beyond our purview, and honestly, we should be taking out foes way stronger than a level 2, level 3 wizard should be able to be taking on. As well as giving all sorts of other advantages to ourselves and our party. We've got Mage Hand, we've got Prestidigitation, we're dealing good damage, we're locking targets down, we're giving them soft control with Booming Blade, we're moving out of harm's way so that our healer hopefully doesn't ever have to heal us. Hopefully if we've been playing this character right, we've probably taken very little damage over the course of our career, despite being in melee, which is magical and amazing. But combining shield and our mobility and our ability to move away from things, we are probably really fucking good at staying out of harm's way a lot. And when we do take damage, especially if it's spell damage, we have ways to reduce it significantly, and that's wonderful. We're doing great for ourselves. We fight some foes, defeat some enemies, and level up to level 4. And we get our first ability score improvement and or feat. There are a lot of tempting options here, and I'm not sure what to do. So, here's the issue. There are some feats that would give us access to spells that would be good for our DPR in the long run, like Hex, which would be very cool. However, they require our concentration, and Shadowblade is straight up better for our concentration damage output now and honestly into the future. If we look at the spell, I think it scales every 2 levels. Yeah, so once we get 5th level slots, it'll be 48 on each attack. There's nothing that will equal that damage output. There's just nothing. There's just no way. And that's fucking awesome, and that's really cool, and we like that a lot. Nothing wrong with that. But that means our concentration will be pretty much taken by Shadowblade pretty much all the time, and I'm okay with that. Got no problem with keeping Shadowblade as our primary option, especially given that it's got this rider effect of advantage against targets in dim light or darkness, which is amazing. Because at present, we can give ourselves advantage on one attack, and that's all that matters because we only have one attack. In the future, however, we will be making more attacks with our weapons, and some of those attacks will be made with advantage because of Shadowblade when they wouldn't have been made with advantage otherwise, and that's very, very cool for us. It makes us very, very happy. So that's a very good rider effect and a very good element of Shadowblade. We love that a lot. The spell is good. There are other options that are also good, but I think this is probably our primary damage output for most of our career. It seems like the best option. Okay, so what do we do for our ASI? Well, there's the one thing to do that is the simplest thing to do, and it's maybe the most tempting thing to do. And it's to do the ability score improvement thing. A +1 to 2 scores. We have 2 scores, primary ability scores for our character that are currently odd numbered. It would be great to round both of those out right now, and we get really good things from both of them. If we bump our con by 1, our constitution saving throw goes up by 1, and our health goes up by 1 per level, which would be 4 at this level, which is not nothing when we don't have much health. Also, I forgot to roll HP. Let's roll for HP for level 4, because we're only at 22. 1d6. It's a 5 again! Let's fucking go! Holy shit, we're beefy. We are a beefy wizard. This is not expected. 14 goes to 19, because plus 5. And we apply 26 hit points on a wizard, level 4. Not fucking bad. Not fucking bad at all. That will go to 30 if we bump our con. That's great. That's, like, so good. If we bump our intelligence, that also, while blade singing, gives us a +1 to our armor class, a +1 to our constitution saving throws, and something else. Oh, a +1 to our spell save DC and our 2 hit with spell attacks, which we're not really making. We're using dexterity for all our attacks, mostly. It seems maybe worth it. Seems like it might be worth it. Now, I'm going to take some time and look through feats. There is Dual Wielder, which would also give us a +1 to AC, which is cool. There are a couple of feats that would just bump our intelligence, and be quite good in doing so. Shadow or Fey Touch could give us some spells. Again, Fey Touch, the most appealing thing in Fey Touch, I think, is getting Hex. But again, Hex is concentration, and we already are concentrating on Shadowblade to buff our DPR. If we wanted to, we could just use flat normal short swords, and that's fair, and then use Hex as our concentration spell, as our bonus action, and make lots of short sword attacks and be doing great for ourselves, and that would be lovely. But Shadowblade seems like my choice for this character, so I'm not going to do that. There are other spells in Fey Touched that are cool and useful and maybe even thematic and interesting, but I don't really want any of them. They're not that useful, and none of them is going to be better in most rounds, in most situations for us, than running up and attacking with a Shadowblade, and so be it. I think this is maybe an odd and interesting option, would be taking the Eldritch Adept feat to get Devil's Sight. Do we get access to darkness as a spell? Oh, it's still concentration. It doesn't really matter. I think if you had a Hexblade in your party who was planning to darkness up, grabbing Eldritch Adept Devil Sight right now, and then being able to do the same thing with them and get your own advantage from it inside their darkness bubble with Shadowblade and also other advantages and be able to see and all that shit, that would be super sick. But it's probably not necessary because we can't set it. It doesn't work for us in particular. Slasher and Piercer would be cool, but we don't have the dex to bump, so it's not worth it. Actually, Slasher and Piercer are useless to us because we're dealing psychic damage, not slashing or piercing damage. Alert would be cool. It would buff our initiative really high. We'd have +10 to initiative, which is insane. And we couldn't be surprised, which is cool. And other creatures don't get advantage if they're unseen, which is all very good. It could be a very good thing. I think, I'm pretty sure for this character, Defensive Duelist would be cool. We just wouldn't have to use shield most of the time. We could use that and just have a much more permanent buff to our armor class, but it's not necessary. Again, it's just a nice feature. It's not actually that good. Lucky would be great because luck points are amazing. But our best option for this character, with the ability scores that we have, is +1 con, +1 intelligence. And it does a lot for us. It bumps our armor class. I think our base armor class, we are running around with a 20. Right? With Blade Song. Sorry. Running around with a 20 with Blade Song. 25 if we have shield this round. We have Absorb Element still. We are using a Shadowblade for all of our attacks. We're casting it with a 2nd level spell. It's easy. We've got a ton of those spell slots. We can have Shadowblade up 3 times per day as a 2nd level spell. That's usually going to be plenty. When we don't have Shadowblade, we still have a short sword, and we can still attack with it, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Short sword is really good. Still dealing the same damage. That hasn't changed at all for us, really, because our dex has been static. But we have 4 additional hit points, and we're going to gain another one every level. Our con is high now for a wizard, to the point where it's probably not even worth considering buffing it later, especially because of the things that buffing our intelligence later gives us. There aren't any feats that make life super valuable for us. The only one that is even considerable is Dual Wielder, and it's not that good. Also, it doesn't really matter because we don't have to stow or sheath our Shadowblade. We just have to use a bonus action to cast it. So, and then we just have it. We don't have to draw it. So, like, we're chilling. It's like, we're set, man. We're doing great at a wizard level 4. We are strong, we are sturdy, we are dexterous as fuck. Our acrobatics check is +7 plus a d4, with advantage if we're blade singing. We have performance, we have stealth, we can sleight of hand if we need to. Our investigation is good. Our history and other intelligence-based skills are pretty good. Our arcana is great. We're solid in everything that we need to do. We are fast, generally. We are faster if we need to be. We're a speedy, stabby, slashy, shadowy, boomy, powerful fucking wizard. We're doing awesome, everybody. We're doing fucking great. And it shows, and we get the rewards of doing great because at this point, I think we would level up to level 5. Let's go. We gain 3 hit points, of course. Let's go and roll that d6 just for fun. That's a 2. That sucks. That's the worst. Generally, I will re-roll 1s during this because most DMs do. I think. At least Matt does. 18 goes to 20. Silly. So up by 2. Up by 5 for the level. So we're still at 35 hit points at a level 5 for a wizard. That's not nothing. I've built fighter characters that are at level 5 with like 40 hit points. So this is great. And that's a d10 hit die. Obviously, the con wasn't good, but we're doing great. We're happy. We are a melee-focused wizard. Now, of course, you might notice that we don't get anything at wizard level 5, right? Dang, what's up with that? Well, 2 things, actually. First off, we have not grabbed 2 additional 2nd level spells last time, in order to grab them now. I don't know if your DM would let you do that, but I'm going to do that because I don't think that I want to grab 2nd level spells, but I'm going to say that I have 4 more spells because we've leveled up twice. 4 more spells, and we have 3 more that we can prepare, which is amazing. There are some great spells here. Haste is the obvious choice for most Bladesingers. It gives you a full additional action that you can use to take 1 additional weapon attack, which, with Shadowblade, to be fair, would be amazing. However, haste is concentration, so we can't do both, so we're not going to take it. We are, however, going to be smart, or at least not stupid. We're going to take 2 simply core spells. We're going to take Fireball, because there's no better area of effect damage spell. We're going to take Counterspell, because the biggest threat to us is a spellcaster throwing something at us that we can't necessarily absorb elements, and even if we can absorb elements, it's better if we can just get out of the way. So countering big spells that will cause damage to us and all of our teammates is going to be something that we're really good at, and we should be doing as much as possible if we can. So we're going to take Counterspell. That's 2 of our spells down. I think it's maybe worth just saying that we would take haste anyway because it's so good. I don't know. I mean, the move speed's amazing. I think I would, at this level, I would actually use some of my other spells for some lower level spells. I would grab Featherfall, just have it. Because at this point, falling off a cliff and dying at a level 5 is really annoying. And I would grab something else, too, that would be valuable. Something like See Invisibility, maybe. Or actually, I would think I would grab Rope Trick, and I would grab Lehman's Tiny Hut. So haste, fireball, I think I'm 1 away. I think I've got 1 extra that I'm giving myself, and that's totally okay. I would grab Lehman's Tiny Hut. It's a ritual. It makes you all safe, and you can sleep safely at night, and that's super nice. There are other crazy options that we could do, but since we're going to be using our concentration on Shadowblade for the most part, we're not going to do any of those crazy options. Obviously, there are tons of great 3rd level spells. Pick your favorites. Choose what you want. Hypnotic Pattern is great for control. Fly is great to be flying. All sorts of things are good, but I don't think anything gives us more flat DPR than Shadowblade. And so that's what we're going to continue taking. However, we do get 3 more prepared spells. I'm going to say that we will always have Counterspell prepared from this point forward. We will always have, where's Shadowblade? We'll always have Shadowblade prepared. We will always have Misty Step prepared, Shield and Absorb elements as well. I will unprepare Charm Person. I think we will have Featherfall prepared just in case at all times. And we will have our Fireball prepared at all times. Most everything else is rituals. Maybe we'll prepare Mirror Image as well so that we can have that up just for fun. Great. that is basically everything that we need to do at level 5. We've got our spells. We're good to go. For most Bladesingers, they're looking at haste as their best option for damage per round, and they're probably right, but I want to be using Shadowblade because it's cool and I like it. So what does our round look like at this level? Well, there's only been one major change. I guess two. We have +1 to our proficiency bonus, so we are now +8 to hit with our short sword or our Shadowblade, which is very good for us. It makes us hit more. We're going to be attacking with advantage most of the time because we have a familiar. Our familiar will fly in, grant us the help action. We will run up. We will attack with Shadowblade for 2d8 +5 at a +8 to hit, so slightly more chance to hit. Still dealing the same, what is it? It's 9 + 5 is 14 plus. Now we get a d8 on the initial hit of Booming Blade, so our total is 3d8. So 14 plus 4.5 takes our average DPR per round to 18.5, and then we run away, and if they move from where we have boomed them, they take 2d8 now of thunder damage, bumping us another 9 to an average DPR of 27.5, and that's a pretty tasty little improvement there. This is not bad. This is pretty fucking good. Does this equal or match like 27 damage per round free? Basically, you're using Shadowblade, so it's not without resources, but you can do that every round off of a second level spell slot for an entire round as long as you maintain concentration, which you should because you should be running away and staying safe. And you've got absorb elements to reduce incoming damage, and you've got shield to reduce incoming damage. And during this time, if you need to throw out a fireball, you can. It doesn't interrupt anything. You should be blade singing and running around with a 20 armor class with shield if you need to. You're doing fucking great, everybody. Does this match up to like an Elven Accuracy, Polearm Master, Custom Lineage, Hexblade Warlock? Making at level 5, making 3 attacks, essentially like 2d10 in darkness with advantage and Elven Accuracy, right? Making like 2d10 +5 on each of those, plus 1d4 +5 is like 5.5, 11, plus 10, 22, plus 5, 27, plus 3, plus 2.5, I guess, but it would be plus 3, 27, 30. So we're within a few hit points of damage of like a solidly optimized Polearm Master, Hexblade Warlock. They would get proficiency bonus damage with Hexblade's Curse if we assume the best case scenario for them on their Nova round. So I guess it would be 36 damage average per round, or like damage per round if they hit all their attacks, which they should because they have advantage and all that stuff. And it's higher because of crit and 19 to 20 to crit and all these things. So are we in the max range of the most that a martial character could do? No, but we can do a lot more than a fucking Hexblade Warlock can do. We've got a familiar, for one thing. That's huge for us. We don't have to be attacking in darkness to be getting those advantages and stuff, or using Hex, right, to be getting those advantages and damage and stuff. We're making attacks with Booming Blade, and we're moving away from our target. We don't have to remain in melee with them. We're basically disengaging for free every round. We have immense mobility, 50 feet while we're blade singing. Our armor class is way better than that Hexblade, who's probably sitting with medium armor and +2 dex at an 18 with a shield if they're using a shield and a quarterstaff, and their damage goes down if they're using a two-handed weapon, or if they're using a quarterstaff versus a two-handed weapon. So if they're using a two-handed weapon, they're sitting at 16 armor class. Now they have a shield, they can get up to 21, but we can get up to 25. Like, what the fuck? It's not the same deal at all. It's not even close at all. Plus, we're fully a wizard and could be taking a lot more other spells. We have a lot more versatility and utility. We keep our entire party from dying if we fall off stuff. That's huge. We can identify magic items. That's huge. We have a familiar that can scout and do familiar things and check stuff out. We have Prestidigitation and Mage Hand to interact with stuff at range and do stuff. We can get out of dodge quickly with Misty Step, which is super great, or even infiltrate locations with Misty Step if we can, which is super great. We have Fireball to take out groups. We are a blaster, a striker, a counter speller, a utility caster with all of our ritual spells. We are hyper valuable in any party, whether it's combat day or something else. We have performance checks, acrobatics checks, stealth checks. We can fully stealth where we need to. While we're not proficient with thieves' tools, we still have a +5 to the check with them. And if we get our hands on some, we can probably do well with them. If we want to, we can take knock and just invalidate the rogue, make the rogue in the party just super jealous because we have enough spell slots to probably cast it. We're doing fucking awesome. Our whole everything about our wizard at level 5, it feels great. We are a full power wizard. We are lacking only one thing, which would be like the subclass feature of a different arcane tradition, and we have blade singing, and it's as good or better, and it's better for us. So look at us go. Look at us go. Look at our little fucking wizard get going. How sick is this wizard? This wizard is pretty fucking sick, but it's about to get a lot sicker. I said we were building this character for level 6, and that's exactly what we're doing. Let's do that. This is a huge milestone, and this changes everything about the way that our character works. Bink. And let's go roll hit points just to see how high we get. We're at 38. Hopefully we roll a 2 at least and get ourselves to 40. Okay, it's a 3. We take those. So we add 3 hit points to a total of 23 rolled HP and a total of 41 maximum hit points. That is a beefcake of a fucking wizard. At Bladesinger level 6, we get 1 feature, and only 1 feature. We also get like a known spell or something, or like a prepared spell. If we get 1 more prepared spell, we get an additional cantrip. We might have gotten at that at 5. It's cool. Technically, we could take Blade Ward here. And then we could use Blade Ward as part of our thing and just have resistance, which is cool, but we were trying to avoid damage anyway. For me, I think I would probably just go ahead and take Minor Illusion, or maybe Mind Sliver or Message or something else utility-based. If I felt the need to, I would take Green Flame Blade, but I'm going to take Minor Illusion just because I like to have it. It gives us a lot more of that utility and versatility that I really like to have as a caster. And we could take something really cool for 3rd level as well. Something like Thunderstep might be really powerful. Spirit Shroud is a good way to bump our damage if we don't want to be using a different spell. If we don't want to be using Shadowblade, this works great. But and it would buff our damage overall, potentially more than Shadowblade. I might have to calc that because of something that we'll talk about in a second. But at this level, choose what you want. I'm going to take Sending just for fun, I think. And I think we'll take, I guess we'll take Fly, maybe. Or actually, I think Dispel Magic is probably something that we think is useful to have. We're going to take those, and we'll prepare up, I don't know, I guess we'll keep Sending prepared just for fun. Any particular reason for it? No, not at all. Not even a little bit. Shoutouts to Spirit Shroud, though. Definitely an option. Definitely something that I might consider swapping that for. And if I do, I will let you know if I calc it out. But something changes because we gain extra attack. 6th level Blade Singing feature. You can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. Moreover, and this is why we're here, you can cast one of your cantrips in place of one of those attacks. So up until this point, we have been every turn not really using our bonus action for anything except for round 1 to summon Shadowblade, and we have been taking the cast a spell action in order to cast the Booming Blade spell, which simply lets us take a melee attack as part of the spell that we cast, which is very, very cool. But we don't take the attack action, and there are some things about that in the rules that make it not as good. One of the reasons why it's not as good is that when you take the attack action and you're using a light weapon in one hand, you can make another attack as a bonus action with a second light weapon you are wielding in your other hand. That's pretty neat. If we are taking the attack action, we can do that, but we can't. And it was worth it for us, for our damage up until this point, to, instead of taking the attack action, take Booming Blade, because it's a better use of our action, and we still get the same number of attacks, essentially, especially because our bonus action attack from 2-up and fighting wouldn't be granting our ability score bonus, our dexterity modifier +5 to damage, so it would be just like a d6, and that's not super good. But it is something, and that something is pretty interesting, because now, as a Bladesinger level 6, we get everything that we want. we get to take the attack action, we get to make one attack, and we get to cast one of our cantrips. And that cantrip can be Booming Blade, which allows us to make an attack as part of the cantrip that we cast. And we've taken the attack action, so we can make a third attack as our bonus action if we have a bonus action free, assuming that we are holding a second weapon, which we will get to in a second. So, our damage round changes this time significantly. Oh, very significantly. And there are reasons why we might want to do things differently this way or that way or one other way or one other way. And why I think what I am going to do just for now, just so I have it and can look at it, is I'm going to keep sending just because I'm going to keep it. It's not right, but I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to add in Spirit Shroud, 3rd level concentration spell. I'm going to add that spell in just for fun to see if you see what I see, because it might be worth doing. Okay, so gonna unprepare sending, gonna prepare Spirit Shroud just to have it so that we can see it, and we're gonna go look at our character sheet. So, first off, at 6th level, most things haven't changed yet. Our proficiency bonus is still 3. Our dex, our int, our con are all the same. Our initiative is still the same. Our AC is still the same. Our blade song does the same things. All of these things are great. I think we get 1 extra blade song, so we have 3 of them per long rest now. And that's very lovely. Having a third use of this core feature that's very good for us is very good. We can be running around for 3 minutes now per day that we can separate out at 20 armor class, 25 with shield. Very good. Very, very, very nice. We also get a third level spell, which is very good. We've got lots of spell slots now. Lovely. But we can now, as our turn, we have our familiar run on in or fly on in and give us the help action and then fly away with flyby. We run up to the creature, having used a bonus action, perhaps on this turn, let's say. We can use a bonus action to cast Shadowblade into our hand. Boom, we've got it. We can use an object interaction to draw our short sword. We can run up to a creature. We can cast Booming Blade on our first attack of the round, which will get the advantage from the help action. And we will deal 3d8, because 2d8 from Shadowblade, 1d8 from Booming Blade. We will deal 3d8 plus 5, and they will be wreathed in booming energy. And then there's no limitation on which weapon we attack with for our second attack of our attack action. So we can make another attack, this one not an advantage unless the target is in dim light or darkness. If they are, Shadowblade is 100% the best way to go in all of these circumstances no matter what, and you should be using it because it gives you the second advantage on this attack. Regardless, we will make this attack assumed without advantage, but if it hits, and it might, it's still pretty good to hit, plus 5, or plus 8, not bad, for another 2d8 plus 5 points of damage. And then we can make a bonus action swing with our measly little short sword, shing, for 1d6 points of damage, which isn't that good, but it's still something. So our total damage is 3d8 plus 2d8 plus 10 plus 1d6 plus 2d8 if they move from the Booming Blade. So I don't know what I just said. That's 5d8, 6d8, 7d8 from the Booming Blade, plus 1d6 plus 10. 78 plus 1d6 plus 10 is a lot of damage. Obviously, it's assuming that it all hits, and that's not a fair assumption, but it's the way I've been calculating everything, and it's not an unfair assumption either, but let me do this. I have to do, it's divided and then plus 0.5 for the number of dice, right? So 7 times 8 plus 6 divided by 2 is 31, plus there are 8 total dice, 7d8s and 1d6, so plus 4 is 35, plus 10 is 45 points of damage, which is very good, especially considering that, once again, we are not really expending resources to do any of this, because we're just concentrating on our Shadowblade, which is a resource, and it will cost us every combat, but it's 1 use per combat, and that's not fucking bad, everybody. Not bad at all. We're dealing buco bunko damage now, and that damage isn't going to change much as our character levels up further, but what will change is the amount of Booming Blade damage that we do, which is very good, and our proficiency bonus will go up, which is very good. But I think there is something to shout out here as we move toward the end of the build, which is the Spirit Shroud spell. The Spirit Shroud spell says that when you cast this spell, you simply cast it upon yourself. It is a third level spell instead of a second level spell, so it costs more. But until the spell ends, every attack you make deals 1d8 extra damage when you hit a creature within 10 feet of you, which we will because we're in melee. This damage is radiant, necrotic, or cold, your choice when you cast the spell. Any creature that takes this damage can't regain hit points until the start of your next turn. So, here's the thing with Spirit Shroud. What we could do is instead of casting Shadowblade, we could cast Spirit Shroud, draw... if we can draw both of our weapons. We'll just assume that we draw 2 short swords. We had one out, and we cast the spell, and then we drew another one. What does Spirit Shroud require for components anyway? Spirit Shroud... It's a bonus action to cast, so that's nice. And it requires verbal and somatic. So we just have to wave around. We don't need to pull out materials. We wave a hand around or an arcane focus around. We can drop it if we want to or whatever and pull out a short sword. Okay, great. We did it. We have 2 short swords out. We have Spirit Shroud on. We run up. We make our first attack a Booming Blade with advantage from our familiar. Find familiar. Great. Our attack deals 1d6 plus 1d8 plus 5 and plus 1d8 from Booming Blade. So already we're dealing 2d8 plus 1d6 plus 5, which is a little bit less than we would deal with Shadowblade and Booming Blade, because that would be 3d8 plus 5 as opposed to 2d8 plus 1d6. But the damage differential is 1. It's 1. Okay, cool. We make our second attack not with advantage. And again, if you're in shadow, if you're in darkness, then Shadowblade is the move because you'll have advantage on the second attack, and that makes everything worthwhile no matter what, I think. Our second attack will once again be 1d6 plus 1d8 plus 5, so we don't get 2d8 there, but it's 1d6 plus 1d8 instead of 2d8, and that's not bad. If at any point we have a magic short sword, this is a better option. Flat out. +1 magic short sword, better option. 2, if we have 2 separate +1 magic short swords, way better option. Amazing option. Great option. Do this. Regardless, 1d6 plus 1d8 plus 5, and then 1d6 plus 1d8 plus 5. And then we get to make our bonus action 2-up and fighting attack with our other short sword for 1d6 plus 1d8. And that's it. So our total is 4d8 plus 3d6 plus 10. Is this better than... It's still 8 dice of damage. So it's definitely not better in most situations than using Shadowblade. But it is pretty good, and it means the damage is more spread out across your attacks, if that makes sense. It makes your bonus action attack deal a lot more damage, and the bonus action attack wouldn't be made with the Shadowblade anyway, so that's really useful. Again, if you have magic short swords, this is a better option. It also, I think, scales a little bit better. I'm not 100% sure. Shadowblade is a 2nd level slot. When you cast it with a 3rd or a 4th level slot, it increases to oh, already it's worth it. Never mind. You should. I'm wrong. Fuck me. I'm wrong. Spirit Shroud gets 1d8 for every 2 slot levels above 3rd. Shadowblade with a 3rd or a 4th level spell slot, it's 3d8. With a 5th or a 6th level spell slot, it's 4d8. No matter what, you should be casting Shadowblade. Actually, so the fair damage comparison is not this. It's instead that you're dealing 3d8 with each Shadowblade attack. So you're dealing 6d8 plus 1d8 from Booming Blade. Yeah, plus 2d8 from Booming Blade. Yep, plus 1d6. Plus 10. So it's actually 9d8 plus 1d6 plus 10, and the average damage goes up by 9 more than what I was saying before. I'm super wrong. Shadowblade is the only way to go. There's no use for Spirit Shroud in this build whatsoever, especially considering that if you're in Dim Light or Darkness, Shadowblade gives you more damage. So, we have built out from level 1 to level 6 what I think is a very powerful, very cool Bladesinging character up to that level, and even beyond. If you want to see me build this character further, I'm down. But I don't think there are going to be a lot of huge changes. Mostly, we're just going to be vying for higher level spell slots and more uses of better Shadowblades. This is a fun build. I think this is really cool, really powerful. I think that this would kill and murder at most tables. Is it hyper optimized? I don't think so. I think it's solidly optimized. I think this is solidly in the running for being a solidly powerful damage dealing wizard build, as well as having a lot of options for flexibility. Because again, the real core of this build is you need Find Familiar, you want Shield and Absorb Elements, you need Booming Blade, and you need Shadowblade, and that's all you need for the spell. You also need a DM who's willing to let you Booming Blade on Shadowblade. Also, that's a reason to take Spirit Shroud. If you can't Booming Blade on Shadowblade, take Spirit Shroud instead, and just use Short Swords, and you're fine. All in all, I think this is a fantastically fun build. There are a bunch of different decision points that could be done different ways. For example, you could take Dual Wielder instead of Mobile and have a very different character that's doing dual wielding stuff from level 1, but is missing out on some of the Booming Blade damage. There are lots of trade-offs that you can take, but I think I like the way that I've built this particular character out, and I hope that you did too. I don't know if this video will go up anywhere because I don't know if I'm going to make it a thing that I do on my channel, but I hope you've enjoyed if you've been watching, and I'll see you next time I decide to do something silly like this build. Thanks for watching. Bye. Peace.